The checks to be carried out on a propeller after engine start and the methods used will vary from aircraft type to aircraft type and from propeller type to propeller type. In addition to the checks which are described here, it must be remembered that there are many other checks which are carried out on propellers. Most of these checks are maintenance orientated, but nevertheless a pilot is still responsible for the pre-flight visual inspection of the propeller. The particular checks that we are about to examine are those for the single-acting propeller fitted to the Piper PA-34 200T Seneca aircraft. After engine start, the engine oil must be warmed up to the level required by the operating manual before any checks are commenced. The checks form part of the normal after start and before takeoff checks. For the sake of minimizing confusion between gauges, we, in this demonstration, will concentrate only on the left or number 1 engine. The first check is a part of the power check. The remainder forms part of the before takeoff check. Here we've highlighted the particular parts of the checklist that we are concerned with. Throttle, 1900 RPM. Be aware that you don't really want to use any more RPM than necessary. Propeller, RPM lever. Exercise. This part of the check ensures that the propeller functions correctly under the impetus of the oil pressure being fed to the pitch control mechanism. Check RPM drops when min RPM selected. Pull the propeller control lever to minimum and allow the RPM to decrease by 200 as engine oil drives the piston in the pitch control mechanism towards the course position. At this point it's not necessary to wait until the RPM falls to the absolute lowest possible value. You're only checking for the correct functioning of the propeller control system. Check RPM returns to 1900 when max RPM selected. Return the propeller control lever to maximum RPM and check that the RPM recovers back to 1900 as the propeller blades move back towards fine pitch. Repeat. Repeat the previous 2 checks again. By doing this, you'll ensure that warmer oil is being introduced into the propeller control mechanism and the associated pipework. The warmer oil will sharpen up the propeller's response to your movement of the propeller control lever. Throttle, 1500 RPM. Moving the propeller control lever back towards the white line on the control quadrant with this power set should not elicit any RPM change at all, because the propeller is within the constant speed range. Propeller feathering. Check. Moving the propeller control lever below the white line will cause the propeller blades to move towards the feathered position and the RPM to decrease. If, as is the case with the propeller we are considering, a centrifugal latch mechanism is fitted, it's important that the RPM should not drop below 1000, because the centrifugal latches will not become engaged and the propeller will feather, which is not what we're trying to achieve in this check. Throttle. Close and set 1200 RPM. Initially the throttle lever should be closed and the slow running RPM checked at between 7 to 800 RPM. Then the throttle should be set to obtain 1200 RPM. At this RPM the engine should run smoothly and the spark plug should not oil up while you're carrying out the checks on the other engine. Propellers. Max RPM. Select the propeller control lever to the maximum RPM position. Propeller de-icing. As required. If icing conditions expected during or immediately after takeoff, select On. Check propeller de-icing ammeter. Check both alternator ammeters. If your aircraft has double-acting propellers fitted, then the checks to be carried out are much the same as those for an aircraft fitted with single-acting propellers. There will, of course, be differences in detail concerning the basic RPM settings, etc., but the object of the checks will be the same, that is, to ensure a rapid and accurate response to RPM control lever movement. As with the single-acting propeller, it's necessary, once the lubricating oil in the engine has warmed sufficiently, to exercise the pitch change mechanism. This will evacuate the cold, sluggish oil from the pitch change cylinder and purge it from the constant speed unit and the associated oil passages. Just as happened with the Seneca checks, once the oil temperature is increased, there will be an engine test procedure for the double-acting propeller, which will involve causing the pitch change piston to travel from the fine pitch stop to the feathering stop more than once. With a double-acting propeller, there is not only double the amount of actuating oil in circulation, but also an extra system to check. The correct performance of the feathering pump will have to be ascertained, along with the functioning of the pressure-operated cutout switch. This concludes the lesson on propellers.